time is 6:15. Here is the news, edited by Dilini Gunawardena, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. A special program is implemented to eradicate dengue. The Parliamentary Budget Office bill is passed with amendments and without a vote. The list of the eligible beneficiaries of the Aswasuma Welfare Benefit Scheme is published. The Minister of Agriculture instructs the officials to submit the policies and the recommendations of the Minister regarding the usage of fertilizer. Foreign news: Russia renews missile attacks on Ukraine cities. Sports news: tennis. Anett Kontaveit will retire after Wimbledon. Local news in detail. The Emergency Dengue Prevention Presidential Task Force formed in October to curb the dengue epidemic, which is on the rise mainly in Colombo and its suburb, implements a special program to eradicate dengue. Each Monday, schools, preschools and private schools will be inspected. On Tuesdays, factories will be inspected, with construction sites will be inspected on Wednesdays. Thursday is for the private firms, and the government institutions will be inspected on Fridays. Households and shrines will be inspected during the weekend. The observation reports will be sent to the MOH officers of the area. The Parliamentary Budget Office bill presented for the establishment of the Parliamentary Budget Office was passed today, with amendments and without a vote. Acting Minister of Finance Sehan Singh said that this will be an effective measure to showcase the transparency of the island in the prevailing crisis situation. The aim of this bill is to strengthen the financial discipline of the country. Minister Lasantha Alagiyevan said that the promises should not be made solely aiming the voters during the election terms. MP Kabir Azam said that the government service should be revised. It should be developed into a policy. The Finance Minister should submit a medium expenditure frame. MP Professor Ranjit Bandara said that a single policy should be practiced within the country. MP Champika Ranavaka noted that the legal action should be taken on the frauds and tax imposed on sugar. Minister Ranjit Sembalapati said that the optimization of the domestic debt will have to impact on the EPF. MP Asoka Besing emphasized the significance of making the public aware of the optimization process. He also said the government should discuss this matter with the opposition party in detail. The list of the 2.3 million eligible beneficiaries of the Aswasuma Welfare Benefit Scheme was published in the official website of the Welfare Benefits Board today. The chairman of the board, B. Jayaratna, said that these payments will be distributed among 4 social categories, namely transitional, vulnerable, poor and extremely poor. Additionally, the usual allowance for the differently abled, elderly and kidney patients will also be provided. Meanwhile, the board has decided to provide the opportunity to those who did not gain eligibility to submit their grievances. Accordingly, they can forward their appeals in this regard. The applications for this are available at the website of the board at www.wbb.gov.lk. The duly filled applications should be handed over to the divisional secretariats before 30th of June. Further information could be obtained via the hotline 1924. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news, Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaravira instructs the officials to submit the policies and recommendations of the ministry regarding the usage of fertilizer in Yala season and upcoming Maha season. It was recommended to use 70% of the artificial fertilizer and 30% of the organic fertilizer in the last Maha season. However, no recommendations have been made so far this season, and consequently the farmers are facing difficulties. Therefore, they tend to use artificial fertilizer at present. The minister emphasized that it is not possible to avoid the usage of organic fertilizer totally. He made these remarks at the meeting of the Consultative Committee of the Ministry held at the Parliament premises today. The Indian High Commission in Colombo says India is in talks with Sri Lanka to accelerate the implementation of the Smart Classroom project in the Galle district. Education Secretary M.N. Ranasinghe said Indian High Commissioner Gopal Bagle exchanged diplomatic notes on Monday to discuss the expedition of the implementation of establishment of modern computer labs and smart boards with customized curriculum software in 200 schools in Galle district. The project, implemented through Government of India grant assistance, aims to improve digital literacy amongst the students attending school in the lesser privileged areas. This is one among several grant projects undertaken by the Government of India in the education sphere in Sri Lanka. Minister of Industries and Plantation Industries Dr. Ramesh Pathirana was also in attendance. Deputy Indian High Commissioner Vinod K. Jacob and officers from the High Commission of India and Sri Lankan Ministry of Education also participated. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Acting Minister of Finance Shahan Singh said, hope that the government's commitment and efforts will exceed the growth rate expected by the IMF in the end of the year. The government has achieved more results than anticipated thus far, and it is important to maintain the commitment made by the government. He added that the country's progress in terms of transparency, combating corruption and addressing frauds has gained international attention. That came to you on Main News Story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Department of Motor Traffic, DMT, has decided to extend the validity period of temporary driving license issued after the 26th June for 2 years. The Gazette Extraordinary to formally announce the extension of the validity period is expected to be published soon. The DMT took this decision in a bid to minimize the issues faced by the motorists due to the recent shortage of driving license cards when renewing their temporary driving license. That came to you on Watchlight. Moving on to world news, headlines first. Russia renews missile attacks on Ukraine cities. World Refugee Day is celebrated. Scientists warn Himalayan glaciers may lose 75% of ice by 2100. World news in detail. Officials said that Russian drones targeted the capital Kyiv and other cities in the early hours of Tuesday, hitting crucial infrastructure in Lviv in the west. The attacks were described as massive. Ukraine's Air Force said 35 drones were launched and all but 3. The local authorities said that no one was hurt in the attack on Lviv. Today is the World Refugee Day. This was designated by the UN in hope of raising awareness about the situation of refugees worldwide. By the end of 2022, the number of refugees globally stood at 35.3 million, an increase of more than 8 million from the year before, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. More than 52% of all refugees come from just Syria, Ukraine and Afghanistan. Scientists have said glaciers in Asia's Hindu Kush Himalayas are melting at unprecedented rates and could lose up to 75% of their volume by century's end. They further predict the probability of dangerous flooding and water shortages for the nearly 2 billion people who live downstream of the rivers that originate in the Himalaya mountainous region. The report from the Kathmandu-based International Center for Integrated Mountain Development warned the flash floods and avalanches would grow more likely in coming years if greenhouse gases are not sharply reduced. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. Russia renews missile attacks on Ukraine cities. World Refugee Day is celebrated. Scientists warn Himalayan glaciers may lose 75% of ice by 2100. That ends World News.
Development News is brought to you by
Vacancies for women from Desha Sri Lanka for housemaids in Kuwait, Oman and Saudi Arabia for ages 23 to 58 years. Contact number 037 7500 500.
With more Ro-Ro ships calling at the Hambantota International Port, HIP, the port will be adding a further 5,000 slots to accommodate transshipment vehicles. HIP, which currently has the capacity to accommodate approximately 28,000 units, services 9 main shipping lines who actively use the port for transshipment of Ro-Ro cargo. With large volumes expected via several shipping lines in the coming months, the port management consider the rapid expansion of the Ro-Ro yard an urgent necessity. In line with that, HIPG has made a $8 million investment to build another 68,000 meters of parking space. The facility, which will be completed within the next 7 months, will have a yard berth distance of 55 meters. That ends Development News.
Vacancies for women from Desha Sri Lanka for housekeepers, home cooks, caretakers and home nurses in Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia and Singapore for ages 23 to 57 years. Salaries starting from 156,000 rupees. Interviews with foreign agents are now on. Come whether you have a passport or not. Branches, Colombo, Kurunagala, Anuradhapura and Matara. Contact number 037 7500 500.
Moving on to sports news, former world number 2 Annette Kontaveit has announced her retirement from tennis due to a condition in her back. The Estonian said the problem does not allow for full-scale training or continued competition, and explained Wimbledon will be her last tournament. The 27-year-old's best result in a Grand Slam tournament was reached the Australian Open quarterfinals in 2020. That ends sports news.
Go ekathiyana youth ekat life eke change ekat niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekat niyamata set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Commercial Bank of Ceylon has launched Flash FAM, a first time in Sri Lanka as an extension of the bank's award-winning Flash digital bank account app, to encourage parents to foster financial independence and responsible money management skills in their children. This stimulating new feature enables children aged 10 to 17 to use Flash FAM, the country's first teen digital bank account, for their daily transactions and savings once a parent who is also a Flash account user has registered and created a separate login via his or her main Flash account. That ends Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekathiyana youth ekat life eke change ekat niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekat niyamata set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, during a press conference held Monday at the Presidential Media Centre Acting Minister of Finance Hans Semasinga addressed the issue of false information being disseminated by the various parties in the country regarding the domestic debt optimization program. He emphasized that the government has not made a final decision on this matter. Minister Semasinga further emphasized the sensitivity surrounding the optimization of domestic debt and assured that the government is approaching this issue with utmost responsibility. That ends economic news.
Weather report.
Several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamu, central and northern province and in Galle, Mathura and Puttlam districts. A few showers will occur in the north-central province and in the Kurunegala district. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in the Ur province and in Ampara and Batiklo districts during the evening or night. Strong winds about 40 to 45 km per hour can be expected at times in western slopes of the Central Hills, North-Central Province and in Puttlam, Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends weather report. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines. A special program is implemented to eradicate dengue. The Parliamentary Budget Office Bill is passed with amendments and without a vote. The list of the eligible beneficiaries of the Aswasuma Welfare Benefit Scheme is published. The Minister of Agriculture instructs the officials to submit the policies and the recommendations of the ministry regarding the usage of fertilizer. Foreign news, Russia renews missile attack on Ukraine cities. Sports news, tennis. And Kontaveit will retire after Wimbledon. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka.